So we just start from the beginning of this section, but just to have a starting point. Page Samahei. Ve-hamadreygah hagimel, the third madreigah in oiros. Again, we're speaking about oiros after aliyah zorotz, which means that there is an overall theme in the oiros to ultimately come down to the point of world. And the third madreigah in that is ha'oiros hamislapshim b'kelim, the oiros that are imbued in kelim. At that point, when the oiros are imbued in kelim, shaboyim, where at that point boy means they come, it means that they are defined. The oiros then correlate to the kelim in the fullest sense, that they are grasped and they are imbued in the kelim, which means that the oiros recognize the kelim and the kelim accept the oiros. Ad shenasim, to the point where the oiros become kefi mehuz hakelim. They become in proximity to mehuz hakelim, to the reality of the kelim. Shebein arech klal legabe ha'oir. Mehuz hakelim is totally out of proximity to the oir. And yet, after this process, the oir acquires the mehuz of the kelim and is able to relate to the kelim. But initially, oir is be'ein aroich to the kelim. And this is what we're going to discuss for a moment. As for example, as in the case of hasogom, in comprehension, the oir has sechel shebemoyach. Where we have the oir has sechel, that's in the moyach, that's in the brain. Lahasig hasoga gashmis. And this oir has sechel is focused and is occupied in comprehending a hasoga gashmis, a physical hasoga. So that sechel, she'eine b'erech ha-sechel v'hasoga she'b'nefesh haskelos, that is totally out of proximity of sechel and hasoga as it is in nefesh hamaskelos, in the living nefesh hamaskelos, that is a nefesh kind of comprehension of understanding. So our means of representing this is, as we said many times over these days and weeks, if we were to surmise a distance, a perception that we identify by our sight, versus when we translate this distance in Gashmistic terms. How do you get there? To see it is one thing, and to get there is another thing. Although when you see it, you also have an understanding, approximation of this distance, but it's a completely different hasoga. There, your understanding is on the sechel level, whereas when you start talking in terms of getting there, then it comes out into gashmis. The distance itself becomes identified differently. In sight, one does not at all take into account the various twists and turns and the hills and valleys and the obstacles on the way. And the terrain, whether it's slippery or it's solid, it doesn't come into play at all. And yet it is the same distance. And it also, this is the initial sechel that directs a person to go to that place. In comparison to hasoga gashmis, when you are actually placing it in place, so to speak. Also, the similar understanding of these two positions and this distance, but it's a completely different understanding. This hasoga gashmis is totally not in proximity to the hasoga the way it is in nefesh hamaskelos. So now let's get inside. Ukmei hasvoro, as in, for example, the svara, the idea, kishehi ba'asoga Shammai ve-Hillel, while this idea is in the comprehension of Shammai and Hillel, shehei b'bchines chesed u'gvura mamush. So let's place this in this at the place where he's starting off over here. As we said the way before, there was Shammai and Hillel were students by Shammai and Naftali. Shammai and Naftali taught Shammai and Hillel their svara, their sechel. By Shammai and Hillel, the sechel, that's why Naftali taught, split into two. Chesed and Gvura. Shammai saw it from a Gvura perspective, and Hillel saw it from a Chesed perspective. The same svara. Although the svara that Shammai Naftali presented could essentially be interpreted from a chesed perspective and from a gvura perspective. But the svara itself is not limited to chesed and gvura. It's a sechelic perspective, sechelic reality. Whereas when it comes to Shammai and Hillel, it is redefined at the chesed and gvura mamash, on the chesed and gvura level. The whole sechel is essentially based on the chesed aspect or the gvura aspect.
It seems like they're not, I mean, it seems as if they're not really getting it. Because it's Megasham, it's being, is that a fair thought? The sechel per se is clearly above the chesed or gvura, but each student takes it, okay, it's chesed, okay, it's gvura. It's clearly not either of those. Is that the point? Is that a fair comment?
This is the phenomenon that we're saying. It is the very same sechel, the very same oir ha-sechel, but it has descended to be in kelim. Kelim of chesed and chesed, kelim and gvul.
Right. Is it not the job of the student not to package it, put into these kelim or those kelim, but rather to get to go with the sechel process?
Okay, so this is what we discussed yesterday. There's the oir ha-sechel. The oir ha-sechel is not an argument pro or con. We've discussed this in the past. Here's the exposition of this inyan. Coming back to the principle of a bais, of a home. Odom shein the bais ein yod. Now, a bais, a home, as we said many times, the home is not for the purpose of having a place to sit or eat or sleep. Ein Odom is not a human being, goes much deeper than that. Like we said the other day, a person may be a multimillionaire and he can sleep and eat in hotels, and he's lacking this principle. He's lacking a definitive place in the world. To relate to the world, to identify the reality of his relationship with the world. It is not just a functional thing, but a reality. So now, a person acquires a home. As we said many times, a home begins from a house. The house, as it stands as a house, does not display any functional aspect. It's just a place in the world. The minute that a human being acquires it and becomes a home, the amenities of a home begin to sprout out, begin to be identified. Such as this would be a dining room, this would be a living room, this would be a bedroom. Now, all of these things, a dining room, living room, bedroom, as we said, this is not primarily what a home is. This is a real place for a human being. But these amenities of a human activity begin to be identified. That is already at a lower level than in the initial concept of Odom Shein Bayis Ein Yod. And yet, the oyer, so to speak, the principal oyer of the home permeates all of these things. And it settles into all these things. As we said, a bed in a hotel does not substitute a bed in the home. So this principle, the oyer of this home element continues throughout, but it becomes mislavish in kelim.
Okay. So this is a way of saying that the light of the sechel of Shmaya Paltiel gets dressed into the rooms of Hillel and Shammai.
That's right. But that's a lower level.
So it is indeed, it is lower, but again, isn't it the job of the student to get the sechel per se?
He's
not
getting the
to
sechel.
be in one room or another.
Excuse
right?
me, he's getting the sechel. That's the point.
He does get the sechel.
He gets the sechel, but on a lower level, where he becomes a sechel for one direction or the other, like we said in this home situation.
Right.
A bedroom in the home is not a bedroom in a hotel.
Right, but ultimately.
But it's a home.
Right, but ultimately, the student shouldn't be a bedroom student or a dining room student. He should get the sechel, no?
He's getting the sechel.
He is. Okay.
At this level.
At that level.
Because I said, what is the difference between a bed in your own home or in a hotel?
Okay, so
he's getting the sechel, he's not getting the sechel.
Okay, so two things. One is this degree of specificity is appropriate. It's appropriate that it's fine that Hillel
that's his level of sechel.
But it does seem like something gets lost. The rach of Adar, right? Correct.
That's right, because it's the sechel. I said the sechel as it is in the nefesh hamaskelis, nefesh hamaskelis, that is completely above mitzias of world.
Right. In this case, their teachers.
In each case, they teach it completely from a different level.
And they seemingly do not really access that or do not really live with that.
They get it.
But they don't.
But they get it at the lower level. Because this Slavish and Key.
Okay, so it's fair to say it is a descent and something gets lost.
Okay, so it's true, but I just want we should not just simplify it. Something gets lost. It is not that something gets lost in essence.
Good.
The essence is there, permeates the whole Metzius. But you see it from a different level. Let's put it this way, like we said before in the other two levels of the oil. We said the difference between when you are in actual company of the melech, and then when you're not in company of the melech, but you are in the palace of the melech, and the melech is not there.
Right.
Is it real or is it not real? Is the relationship to the melech at that point real or not real? It's real. But the impact is from a different level. Not from the actual presence, but from the impact of his presence.
I know. I guess. Right. I guess I'm having an issue with that. You have the master who sees it from above. He looks down on the terrain, and now comes a lower level. The student is kind of making left and right turns. That's all. It just seems like I understand he has the whole picture, or he's within the context, but he's not the master. He's down on the ground doing left and right.
But the important point is that he still has the oil haseichel. It isn't that he lost the oil haseichel, but he only sees it from a practical perspective.
Does he have Haraya? He wouldn't have his partner going right.
One second. How does he? And that's why we say, of course he does. Ve-hamadreygah. He would not substitute the bedroom, his home bedroom, for a hotel bed.
Right, but his chavrus is like.
One second.
Okay.
What's the difference?
What's the difference? They're qualitatively different.
Okay, so in other words, he does have the oil sechel.
Yeah, fine. Okay. But that being said, his chavrusa is like heading in the opposite direction.
That's right. His chavrusa sees it also with the sechel. also sees the Sechel, but it says the Sechel from a different, from a different angle. This is the whole thing. The Oir HaSechel remains, but it is mislavish in Kelim. Because if we were going down a step lower, that all you have is the practical thing, then it's it's not the Oir HaSechel anymore.
Okay. And the thought that the students of Hillel would now be even further away from the teachings of their master, and seemingly would be even lower down.
Now, when you say further away, again, they're carrying the truth with them, the Oir HaSechel. But it's mislavish at the lower level.
Okay.
They're able to take it from a lower perspective. But it's still the true Oir HaSechel.
It's still the real deal.
It's still the real deal, exactly.
Okay.
This is the third level of Oir. But the Oir is mislavish in Kelim and seen from a Keli perspective. But the truth of the Oir, it remains there. It is not the Keli, it is not the bedroom that is enticing, it's because it's his home that's enticing. You understand the point here?
Okay, so instead of saying it's a disadvantage, you could say it's a mila. It's the best of both worlds. It's specific, it's a keli, but yet it's or.
Well, it's the best of both worlds in terms of coming down into the world.
Yeah.
That's its ultimate goal. But in terms of seeing it from a godly perspective, it's much reduced. Okay, let me go. The fourth line. As the svara is when it is within the comprehension of Shammai and Hillel, which is within the definition of Chesed and Gvura Mamash. In other words, the sechel has a Chesed and Gvura color to it. Although it's sechel. K'moi kein ha'oiros, and similarly the oiros shehem b'ha'kelim, when the oiros come into the kelim ha'reihem b'bchinas mahus u'metzias dover. The oiros are there in the state of mahus u'metzias of a metzias reality, not a seichel reality, but a metzias reality. B'bchinas oir ha'chochma, v'oir ha'chesed, v'oir ha'gvur. Oir ha'chochma, oir ha'chesed, oir ha'gvura mean the following: the truth and the reality of chochma, the truth and reality of chesed, the truth and reality of gvura, not the goodness that the benefit that you have from chesed, the benefit that you have from gvura, or the benefit that you have from chochma, but the truth of it and the oir of it. V'loi rak, the devil is forewarning it, v'loi rak, and not only, this becomes oir ha'chesed and ha'gvura, not only mashe nira lefi gavan ha'kelim, not only that the oir has come into the kelim, and the kelim have a certain color, and therefore you see it through the walls of the kelim, like when you put water in a colored glass. So then the water has not acquired that color. It appears through the glass that way, but the water remained the same. Here we say no, it becomes like it actually acquires that definition of chesed and gvura. Not only the begigan like it, kiim rather shenasim bebchinas chesed and gvura mamash, that the oires become bebchinas, have this definition of chesed and gvura mamash. The sechel becomes chesed and gvura sechel, even though this is a sechel eliki. Bebchinas mitzius. Bebchinas mitzius, the sechel becomes a mitzius. Sechel is oir ha-nefesh. It's based on the truth of the nefesh. All of a sudden, the sechel becomes a mitzius. All right, should we stop now? I think so, because we're going into something. All right. Okay? I
adar